I'm going to do, actually, is since we have a big group, I'm going to turn our camera off and then have you as our full screen. Are you comfortable with that? Is that okay?
Yes, my background's not very exciting, but
oh, no.
Right ahead.
It looks great. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start the broadcast, and then I'm just making sure our volume is good so we can hear you. And we're really excited. And I'll introduce you to Sarah in just a moment, and we'll get going. Okay, I'm going to let everybody say hi, and then I'm going to turn our camera off. But here's DL. Hi, everybody.
Hi. You're making her dizzy.
Okay. Oh, and that's Sarah, right there.
Hi.
That's who you've been chatting with. That's our fearless leader. Okay, great. I'm gonna turn our camera off, so you'll just stare at Sarah's pretty face, but we're gonna stare at your pretty face. And I think we're good to go. Yay! Okay.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. So, I have to call you DL?
My full name's Donna. It's Donna Lynn. Donna's fine.
Okay, Donna. All right. Because I like your last name because it's the street next to where we are, so I can remember how to spell it. I just, when I emailed you last week, I think finding you was this most wonderful little miracle. And you hit me at a time because they asked us if we would review the second or the third book in your series. And so I was like, yeah, but I think we need the first two books because we never actually heard of you before. And it's her first book, so it's okay. I don't feel too bad about that. And you had the three back to back. You had February, April, and May, right? Or February, March, and April, or something like that.
February, April, I think June is how they're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's coming out like towards the end of May, so that's probably right. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna review your book. But what I was telling everyone is that I've been burnt on paranormal and really tired of like series that have gone on too long. For example, True Blood, otherwise known as Sookie Stackhouse, Laurel K. Hamilton. I mean, what is that other one? J.R. Ward. I mean, they just, they hit the ground running. They are really good for about 4 or 5 books, and then you're just sort of like they're phoning it in. And it's not really exciting. They try to put things in it to make it exciting. But I read your book, and then I had to go buy your book. And I couldn't wait for them to send me an ARC. And let me tell you, I don't do this. This is very odd for me to actually put out my money right away without thinking about it too much. So, and then I told everybody we're having you for book club. I don't know if she's going to say yes or not, but we're having her anyway. So I just, and I was very excited about that. So what I'd like you to do as a short little introduction is to tell us about how you came about writing the Cold Iron series.
It's a funny story because when I first moved to Boston, my husband and I had gotten married, moved into the typical one-bedroom apartment. After about 2 years, we were going nuts in there, and we started looking for a bigger place to call our own. And at the time, South Boston was the hot place to move. People talked about how it was becoming gentrified, and that was in the days when you looked at real estate in the newspaper, in the classifieds, in these teeny tiny descriptions. And I started calling brokers in South Boston, which I knew was a very Irish community. And I left my husband's last name, which was Scandinavian, and I got no calls back. I called 6 brokers. Nobody called me back. Someone at the museum where I worked suggested that I try again and use my maiden last name, which was McDermott, and Irish. And I made 6 phone calls, and I got 6 calls back the same day. And I thought, wow, talk about a close-knit community that really responds to other people from their same background. And so I went and I started looking at places in South Boston, and I had this feeling of it being almost a hidden world, because you realize that almost everyone you talked to knew everyone else in that area. It was just very different from where I'd been living in sort of more downtown Boston before. And I was reading a lot about, at the time, these late 19th century cases. There's one in particular about a woman named Bridget Cleary who was, I believe, married to a middle-class artisan in Tipperary who became convinced that she had been taken away by the fairies and that she had been replaced by a wooden log. And he actually convinced everyone else in her family of this too. And they tried to drive the fairy out of her by burning her in their chimney. And it seemed like such a late period to still have this belief in fairies, and it seemed both terrifying and mythological. And it seemed to be a natural fit with the idea of there being this very Irish community in Boston still. And Charlestown, which is the other big Irish community in Boston, is also one of the settings in the book and has a lot of the same character. That's kind of how I caught the idea. It took me 10 years to sit down and write it, though. Little delay.
Oh. Well, that's okay. So when you said you worked at a museum, so your main character, she is a professor and she works at a museum, right? Or she's not really a professor, but she works at a museum. And she does archaeology trips and things like that. So what made you set it with that kind of a thing? Where was it because that was the jobs that you knew, or you were familiar with those kinds of workings, or what?
I've always been really interested in the difference between how people perceive what it's like to work in a museum, which is both fun and full of paper pushing and drudgery, and what it's really like. Because, you watch Indiana Jones is a great example, when he says, that belongs in a museum, and museums he works in are full of artifacts that cause amazing supernatural things to happen. I've never had anything amazing and supernatural happen to me in museum storage, but it would be really cool if it had. And so I was really interested in the idea of making my heroine someone who works in a museum and did have one of those kinds of encounters. And it was a fun world to set it in, because museums are full of crazy stuff with amazing stories attached to it.
And I know you just, in the beginning, you did just touch a little bit about the patronage, where you have to, because when my daughter was in college, she worked at she was a guard at the school museum, at the college museum, and they did lots and lots of parties, and they had to be really nice to be, so that the people would give them money or things for their museum. It was really important.
Very awkward and strange part of that business, where you do find yourself often thinking, this is how we bring in the dollars, by having fancy parties, but it's really all directed at making the stuff accessible to the general public, to people who couldn't otherwise get a look at this stuff and interact with it.
So is your expertise in Irish artifacts or not?
No. I studied classics as an undergrad and art history, and had an interest in archaeology, and didn't ever have the opportunity to study ancient Celtic languages, but friends of mine did, and it's such a sort of fun field just to read, just to sit and read Irish mythology, because some of it's crazy and action-filled and romantic and also really scary.
Yeah. And I forgot the hero's name, but he's an asshole. Con. He was his name. For Connor or something, yes. And I was really amazed that first half of the book, he was an asshole. He didn't get better at first. I mean, he really didn't. He kept doing bad things. He kept digging that hole and making it deeper. But yet, at the end, but by the time we got 3/4 of the way through it, he was like, okay, acceptable and kind of cute, and now we can have sex with him. And at the end, yeah.
Paranormal fatigue that you feel, I think I feel some of it too, because there are authors I love, and I love reading their books, but sometimes, especially when a character is represented as being thousands of years old, or he's a vampire, or he's really dangerous, or he's this cold-blooded killer, but then he's all kittens and puppies at the beginning of the book, and you think there's no place for this character to go, and also I don't believe the thousands of years old, dangerous, blood-sucking vampire is all kittens and puppies on page 1. So, kind of for my own paranormal I decided if I was going to write the ancient alien cold Fae character, he was going to be darn cold, at least for the first half of the book.
Well, he definitely was, and he was, and that was not, it was not a problem because he was very intriguing. You know, it was like, well, what is he going to do next? Because he's, you know, he was manipulative and he was cold-hearted, cold-blooded. He knew what he wanted and nothing. You know, he'd been around for 1,000 years. He wasn't going to put up with any guff. You know, forget it. And I just really liked him, and I loved her. She was so. She could have kicked her ex-husband's butt a little sooner, but okay, you know. But she was really good. But how did you know? There's no vampires, thank God. But yeah, but these and there's no weird, like I was saying before, there's no weird elf names and fairies, and I don't have to remember. There's these courts and who are the good fairies and the bad fairies and the brownies, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not Irish, okay, at all. And I don't think the Germans had anything good except maybe we had wood.
Yeah.
I think a lot of books that deal with the Fae have the Steely and Unsteely court, and
Yes.
they have so many factions, and then they have every other, you know, almost an encyclopedia of other obscure monsters included in a single book. And I really wanted to write something where we had one supernatural creature, and that was where we were focused. And because you really want to be able to understand them, and when there are so many creatures in a book, sometimes it's hard, I think, to get a grip on what they're all about.
Especially if you name them all the same. It's like reading Dostoevsky. Which is what I mentioned in my Kirkus review when I talked about this book last week. I was like, and I do not do Dostoevsky after college, so when all the names end in ski or something, it's forget it. So you talked about that you had moved into Boston, into South Boston. You were looking for a house or a place to live, and you found this whole culture, whole subculture. That was something very similar when I went to college. I moved from a small rural area in Lancaster County with the Mennonites and the Amish, and I moved into Philadelphia, and I realized in Philadelphia with my first year there that there was where the Lithuanians lived and the Albanians lived and the northern Italians and the southern Italians, and nobody mixed. You know, it was like segmented by the street, like at this corner, it's the different kinds of things. So, but that's fascinating that you took what you saw and you've created this whole world in Boston of both regular people and, for lack of a better term, supernatural people that have been around for a long time. And you put it in, you've got the 3 stories. So now the first story is bringing the ancient guy, waking him up and bringing him back to Boston. And now the second one are about the ones that have been sticking around in America for, I guess, quite a few years. So
Yeah.
could you tell us about that?
Book 2, Silverskin, is Miek and Helene's story. And the third book will be his right hand, Alana's story. And I've just seen the cover for that, so it's on its way. It's very soon.
So now, why did they decide to just do it? Are they all just ebooks, or are they going to have any print later?
So they are ebooks first, and the idea is if there's an audience, because everybody knows what to do with vampire books, and everybody knows what to do with werewolf books. I think it's harder to know what to do with fae books. So hopefully there'll be enough of an audience for them that they can go into print, and I can write more of them because I definitely have more stories planned than for just Miek and Alana and Khan. There are other characters who deserve their own adventures.
Okay. And so right now you just have the 3-book contract, so you're just going to get through these 3. Is that how it works?
They're all 3 written, and they're all 3 on their way, and hopefully we'll find out soon what the direction we're going to go in for future books would be. I also write other things under another name, and I write for television, which is my day job, so it's kind of a matter of figuring out what I'm going to write next. So I really want to write more Cold Iron books. So.
Okay, so our little entertainment reporter popped her head up.
Yeah.
She wants to know what do you write? What shows do you write for TV?
So if anyone has lasted a season, but it was terrific. And if you do have kids in the household who are in that age bracket, I thought it was a terrific, terrific series. I ended up writing the season finale, and I found out it was the series finale, which was a little bit sad. But that was the last thing I worked on that ended up on the air. Right now I'm working on a pilot, which, fingers crossed and knock on wood, will end up going the distance.
Okay, well, apparently Tron also attracted 30-some people. 30
Yeah. No, I just discovered that show on Netflix.
Oh, it's on Netflix.
The whole series
I thought it was amazingly put together, and I loved working with the people, and the animation was really, really beautiful, but I think the cost of shows like that is really high, and so if they don't find an audience really soon, it's hard to keep the momentum and to keep moving forward on them.
Oh,
That's so cool.
that's neat. Tron and Irish.
And another name in books.
Oh, what's your other
Yes,
name in
the other
books?
name.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, they'll catch me.
But
What is your other name
I
in
write
books?
Donna Thorland, and I write historical fiction, which the book I just have out now is set in Boston also, but in Boston in 1775, so a little bit different.
Oh my God! You did the Rebel Spy.
The Rebel Pirate was mine. Yeah.
We just reviewed that.
We just did. It was really good. Oh wow!
But yeah, so
Little
a lot of
pirate.
Boston, but
Pirate.
different timing for Boston.
But you live in California now.
I split my time between Los Angeles, where I work on TV projects, which is how I made the trailer for Cold Iron. I have film school friends who are wonderfully generous with their time and, said, oh, let's do this, it'll be fun. And then I spend a lot of the year back east I lived in downtown Boston for about 18 years and finally made the move out to Salem, another amazing location that also turns up in The Rebel Pirate. I'm very fond of New England. So if I have excuses to write about it, I do.
Good. Well, okay, so we don't want to keep you too long. We like to keep it under about 30 minutes. Do you have any questions for us?
Is it historical romance?
Yeah, how do you guys pick what you read next? What's your method?
Guys.
Guys on covers.
Guys on covers. On covers?
Shirtless guys on
Hot guys on book covers.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
somebody.
The cover has to be intriguing.
Yeah, and not like everybody else's.
Yeah.
A lot of times I read what Sarah tells me to.
I know.
It's a lot of recommendations.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
recommendations.
Yeah, we do the name. That's from the name game.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we haven't done yet.
We're going to do the name game.
Paranormal fatigue, or at least Sarah
Yes.
does. Is there anybody you're reading right now that you still love?
Oh, I just finished book 8 of Chloe Neal's The Chicagoland Vampire series. So I
Yeah,
recently discovered those and have just been whizzing through them.
We have the Bigfoot, but we're not going to talk about that. What else are you guys reading?
I have been I had been disappointed in last year's trilogy, but I'm really enjoying this year's trilogy from Robin Carr.
Robin Carr.
Yeah.
You Sandy Stalks, so yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sarah.
I'm staying in 1840s England and Scotland, so there we go.
1840s England and Scotland.
If it's in Scotland and it's historical, I'll read it.
Have you read What Happens in Scotland?
No.
Jennifer McQuiston. I think it's an 1830s or 1840s, early Victorian. It's got the plot's a little bit like The Hangover. The couple wakes up married and can't remember what happened.
Oh, somebody recommended that on a list. I think that she's on my list. Yeah.
She's terrific. I really love her books, and she's got another one coming out in a week that I'm waiting to see pop onto my Kindle.
Glad just interviewed her on Monday. I listened to the interview. It was pretty good. She did it on the phone.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Jenny McQuiston?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have 2 rooms going, so I'm like looking over and talking in the next room. Anybody else want to say what they're reading? Andy bought your book today. She's on chapter 1.
Her first book she actually bought.
Yes, it's the
ebook.
first ebook she ever bought. We're so proud of her.
Yeah.
You've had a Kindler Nook for a long time, though, right?
Yeah, at least a year.
Yeah, a year. She just gets free ones.
Yeah. I like reading the classics, so they're free.
Anybody else want to pipe in? I'm reading thrillers when I don't read.
I'm listening to a thriller. Loving it. So good.
Now I'm listening
and
to
Daniel read a biography.
Scarlet Syndrome.
What did you read?
He read what was his guy's name?
Robert Yates.
Oh yeah, Robert Gates. It's very big. It's got pictures in it though.
My son's reading the Divergent trilogy.
It was good until the last book. I'm thoroughly disappointed. The last book
Just killed
it killed it for me.
Well, it's really funny because Gwen saw the movie last night when she had to go preview it, and she said, I've tried to get into the books, but I haven't been able to, and then I just figured, oh, forget it. She's just going to watch the movies and see if she's got opinions.
Yeah, but the last book just kills it. I'm thoroughly disgusted with it. So advice: don't end your series on a bad note.
There you go. There
Yes. Yep. Keep your fans in mind.
Yes. Well, Donna, thank you very much. Do you have anything? So we have to look forward to the next 2 books. It's Silver Skin, and what's the last one called? Something Song.
Stone Song.
Yes, fatal. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. I hope you have a good evening. We've got dessert coming up, and what's the name of our drink?
Have a great time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.